Welcome back if you were here yesterday for part one. This is kind of a continuation, but a little bit more advanced, if you will, not necessarily more difficult, but just a few more details on Dynamics GP navigation. And so we'll have the same format as we did yesterday. We'll kind of talk through the slides of a few things, and then I'll go over to Dynamics GP 2016 and we'll take a look at how those things function in the product. All right, so to kick us off here, we're going to spend most time today on the home page, the navigation pane, which is kind of the left side of our home page, and then look a little bit more at some of the list views and really focus on really those few areas. So a little bit of a refresher from yesterday on some of this is the to-do area or the reminder area. We're going to talk a little bit more detail about that section of the home page. And if you were on yesterday, you saw me create a reminder and post that to another user, another GP user login, and then I logged in as that user and saw that reminder, that task up on my home page, and was able to go in and complete it and have it drop off of my home page. So did a little bit of that yesterday as well, but we'll spend some more time with the reminders. And of course, part of the reminders is the task area. Those are kind of in conjunction. We're going to look today at how do we configure that part, that to-do list part of our home page. We might not want tasks on there, and so you might not want somebody to give you a task. And you can always say, kind of like, I didn't get the email. If I send you a task and you don't have tasks on your home page, you can always say, oh, I didn't see it, sorry, and so I don't have that plugged into my home page. So not a good idea if that's the boss sending you a task, but if it's a peer, then you can just ignore it. Don't go back and say Brian said. But the My Reports area, we'll talk a little bit about that. Of course, most of you probably know or have seen that you can attach reports to your home page. So with one click, you can execute a report that you use on a regular basis, and outside of doing that, you're probably 3 to 5 clicks away from getting a report generated. And so the idea is that we carve off a good number of those mouse clicks by tagging those to our home page if it's something we use frequently. The metrics area, which is the business analyzer plugin, and so those, as you probably know, are SSRS or SQL reporting. SQL Server Reporting Services is the SSRS technically. So SQL Server Reporting Services, charts and graphs and KPIs, and so we'll look at how to work with those and add those to our home page, or take things off if we so desire. The quick links area is really just menu choices, and so kind of like the reports, the quick links are screens that I open on a regular basis, and again, with one mouse click we can get to certain windows that we might want to interact with throughout our workday. And if you have an older version of Dynamics GP, and this screenshot is of 2010, I think, there used to be an Outlook integration option here where you could actually see your inbox, kind of your messages coming in, and see your calendar inside of Dynamics without having to toggle over to Microsoft Outlook. That plugin has been removed, and so I put a note there that in version 2015 that plugin's not an option anymore. So if you go to try to do that and you can't find it, if you're on a more current version, then that's why. I think not enough people really use that, and so I'm not sure why Microsoft just didn't leave it for those of us that do, but of course they have to keep upgrading that based on the versions of Office and Outlook that change, and so it might have been more work than what I think it is, but you won't see that as an option. The connect area down at the bottom there, that is a connection with Microsoft, and so if we want a live feed from Microsoft on information about the software and just about Dynamics in general, that is a good place to get it. And of course, usually that's the system administrator, more of a power user that is in need or has desire for that Connect plug-in to be turned on. Most people don't necessarily care if there's a service pack that's coming out in 2 weeks, but your system administrator, kind of your top power user, probably does have interest in knowing that. And so that's what the Connect piece does. And so I'll show you what mine looks like live with Microsoft. And it's only one way. Sometimes people will ask, well, is Microsoft getting stuff, you know, from me? Are they taking anything? No, they're not. It's a one-way push. They don't know who's connected and who's not. So, you know, if you have a 20 user system and 10 people have it turned on, Microsoft is not, they don't have any knowledge of who's making the connection at all, and they're certainly not gathering any information from any of the users. So, but of course it does take an internet connection. So if you don't have a stable internet connection or you're working from home or something, it doesn't take a lot of bandwidth. It's not like it's, you know, it's not like you're downloading a movie or something. So it's just a very thin, almost not noticeable type connection that's being made. Okay, so the next area is the customization of our home page, and if you've used GP for a while, I'm sure you've gone into this, but I will open that screen and we'll talk about how the home page can be customized to our own liking. The biggest thing to remember here, which is true about most all of the user preferences, is they are user specific. And so, you know, I could customize my home page one way and all of you do something totally different. That doesn't affect, you know, the data. I'm not hurting anything. I might turn some things off that I wish I didn't, but we should be able to turn all those back on. And so this is all for your user only. And so, and of course, keep in mind the security model is always over top of all this. I'm not going to be able to go grab things and bring onto my home page from payroll or HR, for example, if I don't have access to those modules. And so the security is always overlaying everything that we do in the personalization or the navigation of what we might want to do in the system. And we'll see, this is a copy of my customization setup window, and so I'll open that live here in just a few minutes and we'll go through some of these things, but that's kind of what that looks like when you click on that Customize My Home Page. And so with that, let's do our first trip to the software. And here we have Dynamics GP 2016 R2. And again, this is my home page, excuse me, and I think most people know that we can drag these tiles around. So, you know, if you like things rearranged a certain way, that's completely up to you. No, I've got just about everything turned on here. So I've got a what you might call a busy home page. And so most of you probably would not have everything turned on that I have turned on. But it does, even turning everything on, it does present kind of a nice layout here for us. And so let's go to the to-do kind of reminders area, and you'll see I've got a number of these things running. Of course, these are all smart lists. You all probably know that these are smart list favorites that are actually coming up here, and you can decide if you want them displayed just in a simple list where you've got kind of a hyperlink which will open the smart list, or if you want to make it look like QuickBooks, I always tell people Microsoft stole this from QuickBooks, but we can create a visual queue, so it's the exact same thing, but it just gives us a picture versus just a kind of a boring list. And so I have 3 of these set up to be visual cues. And so how do we configure this to-do area? Well, we go over to the little pencil, and so and you see if I hover over that, it says change details, and so when I click, that opens my to-do kind of setup. So that affects this little tile or this little component, this plug-in to my home page, and I can turn things on and off. And so you'll see I have all of these things turned on, and if I didn't want tasks to show up on my home page, I could just uncheck these, and then tasks would not be an option on my to-do area here. And you'll notice the expansion arrow over here, and so we learned yesterday that that means there's more information. And so when I click on the arrow beside reminders, it does take me to the reminder setup, and Microsoft has pre-built predefined reminders for us, and if we want those on our home page, we just have to check the box here. And so if you were on yesterday and you remember that I checked the collection task due, and I decided to set that up as a queue, and so that's what we have up here. Those are the queues, the visual queues, and so I don't have any collection tasks that are due, and so that visual queue is not on my home page. But if I did, then that would suddenly show up for me to know about and then take some kind of action about. And so then the custom reminders down at the bottom, these are the things that you see, most of what you see here just on my list kind of the to-do plugin here. And so these are things that I have created in SmartList. And so if I click on New, that brings up the custom reminder window, and I pick a SmartList favorite. And so those are all my SmartList. And if I were to open SmartList by itself, I would see all of these in the nice little folder views. I don't see the folder views here because it's just a list. And so these are all the different things that I have sitting in SmartList. And so if I wanted vendor balances, for example, I could select that. And then the system wants to know when do you want the vendor balance put onto your reminder, your to-do list here, and so we have to tell it when we want it to show up. And so I can say if the number of records, and what I would do is say is greater than 0. So that tells the software if there's any of these to put the reminder or the to-do item on my homepage here. And so, you know, in some cases you might want it to only appear if something is greater than or less than, and so depending on the SmartList you select, those could be appropriate. And then if you want it displayed as a visual cue instead of just that underline, just the hyperlink there, you just check the box that you want it as a visual cue, and then that adds that to the list, and you can decide where you want that placed on the page by moving things up and down. And so you can literally rearrange how your reminders show up. And so then from here, you'll notice we can go into the task area because I do have tasks turned on, and this is kind of where we were yesterday very quickly. These are kind of the Microsoft tasks that they've created, but I can create a new task and again put whatever I want there. And if you were on yesterday, remember we said we could map the task to a GP window, to a web page, or to an external file, might be an Excel file or something. And so really there's virtually anything that's available to my computer could be available in the task list. And so very, very easy to do. And since we did that yesterday, I won't redo that, but you kind of get the idea there. And so from here, I'll say okay. And now I'm assuming I do have vendor balances, and so I should get that queue. Your homepage does take a while to refresh, and so it's not instantaneous because Microsoft doesn't want to consume all of the resources of the machine. And so sometimes people make changes and then they'll call saying, oh, I don't see it. And you know, we say, well, go get a cup of coffee and come back and you should see it. They usually refresh the home page you know, every couple of minutes, but again, depending on your hardware, that couple of minutes could extend to sometimes 15 minutes, sometimes shorter. The way to get it to refresh is just to toggle off the page, and so if I just move over to my sales area page and then back to my home page, when I go back to my home page, it forces the refresh, and so that's a very easy way with just 2 clicks to get it to refresh. And so, and once I do, you'll see then my vendor balances visual cue does show up there, and it shows me the count that there's 102 vendors with balances. And of course, when you click on the visual cue, it opens the SmartList just like it would on any of the hyperlinked line items here, takes me to that smart list and shows whatever it is that I've selected. And from here, you can work in smart list just like you normally would. And so that's kind of the to-do area a little bit. The other kind of favorite area is the business analyzer, and if you don't have this turned on, we usually tell people you should, because there's a couple hundred of these reports, charts and graphs, KPIs that Microsoft has built. There's no charge, there's no cost to them. You just have to deploy them, which doesn't take very long. And so now you might be saying, that's kind of hard to see, Brian, and I would agree, it's hard for me to see, and I'm sitting right here looking at it. And depending on which graph or chart is available, this could be a little bit of eye candy, so to speak, that is causing us some problems. And so you probably know that in your home page, you can use this icon that's called the minimize icon. You can click that and change the focus of any of the components of your home page. And so if I want the to-do area to kind of be the main focus, I can click that icon once, and you see what happens is it makes that the focus of my page. Now you can do that on any of the area pages as well, and so you probably know that if you go to the area pages, you can use that same icon. What the idea behind that is, here I flipped over to sales. If I work in sales transactions most of the time, then I might want to put the focus on transactions and then have everything else still available, but kind of tucked off to the side and kind of out of the way. And that's just, gives your brain a little bit of less effort there, less usage. When you go to sales, you don't have to find, oh, where's that transaction tile again? And so it's right there. It's kind of the main one. And so we can do the same thing with my homepage, and a lot of times on the Business Analyzer plugin, we'll make that a little bit larger, because that's a whole lot nicer to look at as we scroll through some of the charts and graphs that we have here. And so I've got a few of these loaded, not a lot, but because I have more than one, I can scroll down at the bottom using kind of the right and the left arrows here. And so you'll see here that as I scroll through, I've got a number of different charts and graphs plugged in. And so this is really just a heat map of where my sales are happening. And keep in mind, this is all out of the box stuff. So I haven't touched any of these reports. I just deployed the 200 or so that Microsoft gave me for free, and I decided I wanted a few of them on my homepage. And so, and I think most of you realize that this is just one way to look at this data. We can look at it through a browser as well, and so I happen to be a GP user, and so I have some of these plugged onto my home page, but many times we have users that are not GP, but they still want access to these charts and graphs, and of course they can have them. And so so here, this is just a typical report. Now, it's a report, but it's rendered in a heat map of the US, but you'll notice if you just kind of move your mouse up to the upper left-hand corner, you don't have to click on anything, but you'll notice that the report shortcuts actually come up. And so view report means that, well, you are viewing it already, but if you click on view, it'll actually open the browser and allow you to view this report in your browser. And so, and that's how users would be able to get to the reports or the charts and graphs that are not GPU users. They can do that through a browser. If you want to make edits to the report, and so that you would be actually opening the SSRS, the SQL Server Reporting Services editing tools, and if you wanted to move this grid where the customer sales box is down here in the right, if you wanted to move that somewhere else, maybe you want to put your logo on the report or something, and change some columns up, of course you can do that through the editing tools. And if you want to copy this image, so maybe rename it and do something else with it, maybe you want to focus on just one part of the US and take some of this area out of there, you could do stuff like that. And then of course you could change the date, so it's reading your system user date, which down, way down in the left-hand corner there is April 12th because I'm in the sample company. So if you want to see the data on the report for a few months back or a few years back, you could easily go in and set that and go forward. And so now, how do we get the reports onto our home page? Well, once these reports are deployed, they will automatically show up here, and you'll notice the little pencil again, just like we did in the to-do box. We can click on the little pencil there to edit, and you'll see the reports on the right. I've only got 5 of them, and those are the 5 that I can scroll through. And so that's what is actually being pulled onto my home page. But on the left are the other 190 some reports that are available to me, and again, all out of the box stuff. I have not created one report from scratch. This is all stuff that is just provided by Microsoft, and so some of these won't have any bearing on you. So obviously the payroll and HR reports won't have any data unless you have payroll and HR data in GP. If you don't use inventory or order entry, of course those reports won't make any sense, but there are a number of them here, and if you were to deploy these, if you need help, just let us know. But there's got to be some here that you would probably like and use, receivables and payables, outstanding, and so forth. And so lots and lots of options here, and it's very simple. If you want this report on your home page, you highlight it and you click Insert. You'll notice that you can highlight and actually edit the report, and that will open the editor for you. If you decide you don't want that report anymore, you can remove it. If you want these things rearranged, you can do the up and down buttons here on the side. And so very, very simple to do. There's no programming involved or anything sophisticated. And so that's how we get those charts and graphs onto our home page, so we can have these little pictures to look at all day. And so I'll go ahead and kind of shrink that back down. So let's look at the customize this page. And so this opens the screen you saw on the slide that allows me to customize what's on my page. And so here, if I don't want the to-do area on my page at all, I can simply take that off. I can also get to this screen, the to-do area screen that we looked at a few minutes ago. I can get to all of those from the customization setup here. My quick links will show those screens that I have on my home page, and I can edit those here. And of course, I could click on that tile on my page and get this same details window, but the same idea. I can move things up and down. I can modify, so maybe you'll see down here I've got AP entry. Well, you probably know, if you do accounts payable, that's not really what the screen's called. It's the payables transaction entry window, and so you see the window name in gray below here, because obviously we're not changing the name of the window. But when I put that shortcut on my home page, I didn't really want it to say payables transaction entry. Actually, it doesn't put the word payables on there. It just says transaction entry. Well, is that GL? Is that sales? Is that payables? Is that purchase order? I mean, what? Well, it doesn't have the actual module name. It just says transaction entry. So I really wanted something that was more descriptive, and so I just called it AP entry. And so you'll notice that on my quick links here, it says, in fact, AP entry. And so we can even personalize what the windows are called to our own liking. Now, just because I called it AP entry, if you put that payables transaction entry on your home page, you can call it something totally different, because remember, your home page is yours, and anything you do to it belongs to you, and no one else will see those naming conventions. Same thing with reports. You can rename reports. So just because Great Plains calls it one thing or GP calls it one thing, when you bring it to your home page, you can call it something different, something you'll recognize and know it by. The column stack, remember when I focused on the business analyzer section so we could see that map of the US, and I made it larger, everything else immediately went to the right. Well, how did it know to do that? Because in my customization box here, I said I want the columns stacked. If I choose to magnify one area, I want the column stacked off to the right. Now I could have those go to the left, I could have my columns go to the bottom or to the top. And so that's really up to you. I just happen to have mine going to the right. And that's how and where we do that. And then the last thing here is to change the role. And so I have a role assigned when I joined the system, and probably accounting manager or something fairly high level. But this area allows me to go in and change that role. And so here you'll see a little warning when you click on that box. You'll see a warning saying, you know, if you've kind of personalized your home page here, if you change roles, you're going to lose some of those personalizations. So, okay, fine. And so, you know, here are the industries, and these are defined by Microsoft. So we don't have a way, we don't have an easy way to change these industries. And so you kind of have to pick one that you're somewhat close to. And then once you pick the industry, then you have the options here of picking a role, and the role is going to change the display of your home page. It'll change your configuration based on the security that's attached to that role. Now, again, keep in mind that you might pick a role here. You might say, oh, I'm going to be the payroll person, and that way I'm going to get all the payroll screens available on my home page. Well, you are, as long as you have access to payroll in this company. If you have no access to payroll and you pick the payroll homepage template layout, you're not going to see anything, and so you're going to have a blank or an empty home page. And so you have to pick something that you have security to, or at least some security to. And so you know, sometimes you might have access to look up employee information but not actually enter payroll hours and print checks and do direct deposits and so on. And so, you know, you would see as much as what the system can show you, but the security model is never breached based on you asking for something. And so I'm going to cancel that because I don't really want to change up my whole home page here. The connect area, and we'll make that one a little bit bigger just to talk about. You'll see this is the link to Microsoft, and so this is Microsoft feeding information one way back to me. And so there's looks like about 4 different things here. And so well, what's coming June 1st? So you know, you can expand that and read what's going on. And so it looks like this is going to be features that are starting to be released for GP 2018, which is due out around the 1st of December. And so, you know, these are things that Microsoft is telling us you don't really have control over these. They send out what they send out, and so it really is up to us. If we don't want this information on our home page, we can just take the connect piece off. But this does require, for this to be updated, it does require a customer source login. And so if you don't have a customer source login, you probably don't want to put the connect on, because it's not going to show anything of any value or anything that's timely. And so we do want to make sure that when we put the connect piece on, that we actually log in. And so the login screen, I'm actually logged in, and so it's not showing. But if I was not logged into customer source, it would show a little hyperlink up here in the right hand corner that that asks me to log in. And once you do that, then generally it'll stay logged in, and unless you have some kind of system outage or something. And so but yeah, without it being logged in, it doesn't provide you too much detail. So anyway, that's kind of the connect piece, and some people like that, some people don't. And so the reports, kind of the last area, the reports works the same as the screens, as the quick links. So you can click on the little pencil there, you'll get a list of the reports that are available to you, and you can select those reports. And here you can, this is very similar to the list view that we looked at yesterday. These are the reports that I have put on my home page, and so I can highlight one and I can view that report right from the list view. Although, why would you do that? Well, if you want to run multiple reports kind of back to back, that would be okay, but there's really no reason to do that. If I want to see that report from my home page, I just click it and the report will execute here in just a few seconds and populate on my window, just like if I drilled down into the report area and found it and selected it and printed it and so forth. And so, you know, it does use the default settings based on this report, which for me was sending it out in detail and sending it out to the screen. And so, of course, if you wanted to change those or you didn't want those this time, then you'd have to go to that report and make the changes. You can't make the changes from your home page. Very easy. And so you could open the kind of list view of your reports, and you know, you have some other navigation options here. And so, you know, if you wanted to print this, you could get to it that way. If you wanted to edit the report, there's editing the report options, and so this window will look familiar. And so, you know, that kind of takes away from the one click. But if you want to make changes, you want to make changes. And so you do have to open the report, at least in the list view here, to be able to get to the editing options. And so still just a few clicks away. Okay, so let's revisit the slides here. See what else we have. All right, so next is kind of the navigation pane, and you all see that. Yesterday we looked at how to turn that off and on and how to resize it and dragging it to the right and then back to the left and so forth. And so got a little bit of exposure on the navigation pane. But a couple of things to remember is, again, it's customizable per you, and so it is for you and you alone. What's on your navigation pane has nothing to do with what's on mine. Just like the rest of the home page, and you can decide what you want displayed there. So when we go back to the software, I have a lot of things on my navigation pane, and so here you'll see on this screenshot we've got our home page, financial, sales, purchasing, inventory, and admin. Well, we can decide what's there and how many of those choices we want. If we don't have access to administration, well, why even put that on my navigation bar? If we don't have access to payroll and HR, let's not even make it available. All it does is clutter up my screen and gives me another choice I have to drag through or around to be able to get to those things that I do work on every day. The top part of the window, the navigation list area up here, Microsoft is going to pre-populate that with a number of things for us. We can add to the list if we like, so we can put our own shortcuts on there, and I'll actually show you how to do one of those here when we get back to the live copy of Dynamics. Yeah, the idea is that you could navigate the system without using any of the menus, and so the top menus, which are more the traditional menus, if you don't like those menus, or you've looked at them for 20 years, you want to do something different, you can use the navigation pane and the navigation list to drive yourself through the system and never go to those top menus. We kind of looked at the navigation list yesterday, the list view of things, and so probably go back and look at that one more time today, but we started to do a little bit with that yesterday, and that's a very powerful way to extract data. You can almost think of this area as Smart List built into the software, where you're not really even opening Smart List to run a Smart List type query, but that's built in now to the navigation piece. Okay, so let's go back and take a look at some of those things. And so here, when I'm in the navigation area, and of course I do have mine turned on, I can right click and get a little options box here. And so, you know, you can do things. Let's go to options first. As I was saying before, if you never work in some of these areas, you can just turn those off, and you don't even own those modules, or don't, you know, you've never set them up, maybe they're not even installed, and so you can come in, and you'll notice that when I do that, then it shrinks the list down here in the lower part of the navigation pane. So those things that I don't use, I don't have to see. And so, and of course you can rearrange these just like you can on most of the other customization elements here on my home page. So financial doesn't have to come first after my home page. Maybe I work in sales all day, and so I want sales to be first, and maybe I want sales above my home page. That's perfectly okay. You can rearrange how the navigation looks to your own liking. The other thing we can do is add a shortcut, and so I can add a window, so a GP window that I might want on the top part of the list. I could add a smart list, and so I could find a smart list that I use a lot. I could add that to the top shortcut list here of my navigation pane, and I could then with one click go run that smart list without ever actually having to open smart list, of course, unless I wanted to make some edits and so forth. But that's a one click away from anything. If you have macros in the system, you can add a macro that you have so that you can run it right from your navigation pane here. You could add a web page, maybe your bank's page, or if you go to a vendor's page to look at their catalog or pricing and so forth, you could certainly add that, or a number of those to your navigation pane here on the left, so that with one click you could be there. Or an external shortcut is a link to really anything else, and so maybe an Excel file or whatever it might be. So I'm going to add a GP window, and when I click add a window shortcut, it brings up all of the components that I have installed into my system. And of course I've got virtually everything turned on here, so your list might not be anywhere near that large. But let's suppose I work in fixed assets a lot, and I have fixed assets installed, so we'll grab that. And of course you kind of have to know the name of the window. And so let's say I just want to add something basic here like the fixed assets general window. And so that's probably what it's called. And of course, if you add the wrong window and that's not where you want it to go, you can delete it and not hurt anything and bring that right back. And so there's general ledger. So I should have picked a window that maybe I know the exact name of, but let's do the mass change. And so I can click add. Now the same rule applies. I can rename this, and so if I just want to call it asset changes, that's perfectly fine. I can click add and done, and you'll notice then that that immediately shows up on my navigation list shortcut bar here. And so when I click that, it takes me right to that window. And so again, one click away. Now I could put that on my home page as well. And you know, Microsoft is about choice, and I always tell people sometimes they give us too many choices, because the question always comes up is, well, why would I not put that on my home page under my quick links? Well, you could, and it's personal preference. It's just you know, some people might fill up their home page and then they want to use the navigation list, but totally up to you on where you put the shortcut. And so, well, you know, that's not really the window I wanted, so I'm just going to right click that and I'm going to say delete, and off it goes. I'm not hurting anything, nothing at all happens. It's just my own personal preferences of the software here. So I could also add an external shortcut, and this might be an Excel file, and so maybe my commission report or schedule, and browse out to where maybe that is located here, and we'll just find one. We'll just grab something, and I could give it a keyboard shortcut. So if I wanted this to pop open when I hit the F12 key, I could do that, and I'll click Add and Done. And so now I hit the F12, and of course it opened on my other screen, and so there's the spreadsheet that I put the shortcut in. And of course you could do it the old-fashioned way and just click on the commission report, and then you'll see it here reopen. And so very simple to do. We can attach anything that's anywhere on the system, whether it's our local drive or network drive, we can attach to Dynamics GP and execute with one click or one button being pushed. Okay, so as we kind of navigate away from the home page, we go over to we'll go to the sales area page. You'll notice that my navigation list now is sales related because we're in the sales part of the system. And so I don't have all my shortcuts. I don't have my homepage shortcuts. I have my sales shortcuts. And Microsoft pre-populates with a lot of these. And of course, if you don't like what they put on there, you can right-click and take these off. But it does allow me to kind of create my own shortcuts that are related to sales. And so if I wanted to see all of the reports that Dynamics GP has for sales, you know, I could navigate the old-fashioned way, reports, sales, and oh, now let's see, where was that? Is it analysis? Is it history? Is it activity? Oh, I don't know. And then you start to go in and no, that's not it. And of course, all the menus close out. And so, you know, I go back to reports and sales. It must have been analysis, and then we find it. And here, well, that wasn't that one. Maybe it was this one. And so, you know, you can start to rack up a dozen mouse clicks just trying to find a report that maybe you don't print frequently. And of course, you could put that on your home page, and that's what most people would do. But you could come in to the Microsoft Dynamics GP reports, and when you click on that, it takes us back to kind of the list view. Every single report that's on this menu, reports, sales, every single report and all of the different options, which could be hundreds. Actually, I've got 114 here, so you'll see over at the right it says 0 of 114 records. That's 114 in a non-production environment, so this is just out of the box stuff. Yours, you could have, you know, we've seen thousands of report configurations or options set up. And so I know I don't want demos, and so I can sort by the option column here. And so I can see, you know, all of my demo reports then sort away. I could create a new option from here if I want. But, you know, this gives me every single report in the sales system all here together in one spot. I don't have to know, was it analysis or history or activity, and some of those to me don't make sense, quite honestly. After 22 years of this, I'm like, why did they put that in analysis? To me, that's activity, but, you know, don't ask type thing. And so now, you know, I don't know the name of the report, and now I've got 114, so it's you know, they're all in there together. Well, let's use the filter. So I'm going to say where the name of the report, and I'm going to say begins with, and I want a customer report. So I'm just going to put in CUST and see, do I have reports that start with customer? Okay, well I do. And so here now I could, maybe I want to pick this one for example, and once I highlight it, I can either print it, or in this case we'll just view it. And so there's the report that you've, or the report style that you're all used to, just the off the menu. I call them the classic reports, the old style GP reports. And just with a couple of clicks and a little bit of filtering, I was able to get down out of the 114 reports to the 5 that actually begin with customer, and pick the one that I think might be the best report. And so so that's maybe a different way than what you're used to. For driving into your reports and getting to your reports, but could be efficient if you kind of take the time to get comfortable with it. We looked yesterday at the Excel reports. Remember, there's a couple hundred Excel reports that are free and available to you for downloading or deploying, and when you do that, they automatically show up in GP. You don't have to do anything whatsoever. You'll notice these top ones here look a little different. Well, those are dashboards that I built in doing training, and so here's one that I built for GPUG, for the user group, on one of their events back in November. And so when I save that report, I just save it to the same place that Microsoft saved their reports. If I do that, it shows up on my report dashboard here on my list. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to build any hooks. It just magically shows up there. If we go to the reporting services reports, so these are our SQL service reports, and these are the things that are plugged in onto my home page. And so you know, if I was looking for an SSRS style report and I had these turned on, I could go see in a simple list here everything that Microsoft has built for me, and I could run any number of these. Maybe I want sales per employee KPI detail, tick it off, same rule applies. Yeah, but now you notice that it actually doesn't open this report in GP because these are the SQL reports. And as I mentioned earlier, when we were looking at that heat map of the US, I happen to have some of these plugged inside of my GP on my home page so I can get to them, but they open equally as well in a browser. And so I just made that a little bit bigger so you could see it. Let me find one that actually has some just raw data, and so maybe some just kind of some numbers here. We'll try something up in the receivables. There's receivables details, so that should have some just dollars and cents. And so, oh yes, very good. So here's just a receivables detail, and so so that's good. But maybe I need to work with this in Excel for some reason. But you know, this invoice, something's fishy about that. I wonder what that is. Well, you'll notice all of these blue, just like inside of the software, these are drill downs. And so when I click on that and give myself permission, that actually takes me right down to the transaction in GP and opens that invoice for $1139.70, just as if I would have navigated through the inquiry system in GP. And so that's kind of nice, but maybe I need to work with this in Excel, and so I need to do some slicing and dicing. And so of course I can print this. I'm going to save, but native to this tool, because these are SQL reports, so this is all Microsoft stuff, native to the tool is the export to Excel. I don't want to take it over as a comma delimited and have to rearrange it. I want it in Excel as Excel. And so when I click on the button there, the system will go grab that report, run through a little formatting, and open that for me in Microsoft Excel. And so once it's in Excel, then of course, you know, the same rule applies. I can do anything and everything that I would normally do with it in Excel. And there it is. And enable editing. And so now it's Excel. And so whatever I want to do here is totally up to me. And so this is coming off the server here for a second, so it takes just a little bit longer. So there it is, and now I've got the same report in Excel. Yes, and look, I've got my own little drill downs here. And again, this is out of the box stuff. I have not touched this report. This is the way it comes from Microsoft. And so I can open these up and see lots of details about this, in this case, this customer. But remember, I drilled down this 2002 invoice. Well, I'm in Excel, and so the same rule is true. I can click and open, and presto, I can still use the drill down directly from Excel. Now I have to be connected to the network, obviously, so I couldn't be on my home computer without a connection. And I happen to be a GP user, so it knows who I am. If I'm not a GP user, then the security is not going to let me drill back into the window, of course. And so, but you know, that's imagine what you could do with that if you took a little time to get creative. And again, there's a couple hundred of these reports. There's a couple hundred of the Excel reports that each one of you on the call own. You know, unless you're on a version that's 15 years old, that might not be the case, but anything in the last 10 years, you own the stuff. And so hopefully that's gives you an idea of what you could do with a little bit more navigation. And I think, Ashley, do we have any questions sitting out there? I think that's what I wanted to make sure, or at least make sure we got through as far as content, but we'll have questions and have time for those if we have any.
Yeah, we actually got a couple. The first one is, are there any procedures for all AP?
I'm not sure exactly what.
There's a follow-up question.
Okay, all right.
I am new to my organization and I ran first payable checks. I tested to print the checks and now I can't reprint.
Now read that again.
Yeah, so is there any procedure for all AP? I am new to my organization and ran first payable checks. I tested to print the checks and now I can't reprint.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah, so if you should have out there in your purchasing transactions, under the print checks button here, you should see your batch out there. And if you ran checks to reprint and you really ran the checks, then they're going to be probably in another window. But if you ran a test or an alignment, then the batch should be in this window. So if you ran real checks, and at least the software assumes you ran real checks, then you'll want to go in post checks, and you should see your batch out here in the post checks window, and that's where you can reprint. So I don't have any, but you can reprint the checks, or you could void those, or whatever you need to do, whatever the options are here. But that's probably where your batch is. If you don't see it there, so if your batch screen looks empty like mine, if you're using a remittance process, then check the remittance window as well, but your batch will be in one of those two places, almost guaranteed.
Great. And then how can I verify whether checks are void?
Well, you could look in either one of those windows and see is there a batch out here in the print screen. See, mine are ready to print. I haven't printed yet. Once I do print, the batch will be in the post payables window or post checks window. And if you see the batch out here, they're not void. If it's empty, they should be void. But if you want to check it, what you could do is go into inquiry. And I just picked inquiry transactions by vendor, and you could select a vendor, one that you knew had a check in the batch, and then look in here and see void checks. And let me just toggle mine into payments here, and I probably have some voids, but we'll see. So void, yeah, here we go. So void checks will always be historical, because when you void them, they immediately move to history, and you'll see PMT for payment, but you'll see the asterisk on there which tells you that that's a historical payment, but it's been voided. And so, and there's my check number 20058. Of course, you could drill back on and see that it's flagged void in the system, but yes, this is a quick and easy way to verify.
Great. Next one, how do I remove list items from the individual panes? For example, removing a few of the selection options in the inquiry title of the purchasing screen.
Oh, okay, so the columns, I think, the column heading. So once you're in the list view, and this is why we have servers and not laptops for Dynamics GP. And so you have a couple of options here. The easiest way is if you have columns that you don't want, you can right-click anywhere on this column bar, and you can add or remove different columns here. And so if I say, you know, I don't want the date in there, for example, I can right-click, and then immediately that column is removed. And if I take it off and I want it back, I can easily add it back. So I think that's what you're asking. If not, you can shoot us an email with a little bit more detail or give us a call. But if I'm understanding right, that's the list view and how you're able to edit that.
Awesome. And that looks like it's it for questions.
Okay, well, we are close to the top of the hour, so thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully you picked up, as I said yesterday, hopefully you picked up at least one or two things that maybe you didn't know or you didn't know about or you didn't know how it worked, and you learned something that you can start using as soon as we get off the call. But certainly if you get stuck or you need more information or you need help on anything, or you need help with your home page reconfiguring or your navigation list, just let us know. We're always here to help out. And Ashley, I think you've recorded this, and we'll make it available on our YouTube channel as well, correct?
Yes, so I will follow up after this session with everyone and send the link, and then if you have any questions from there, you can let us know.
All right, very good. Ashley, thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
to
thank
everyone
you,
that was on the
Brian.
call, and have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Mhm.